Alright guys, I am back yet again with another deck profile for Cardfight Vanguard Dear Days on Nintendo Switch. This time I got version 2 of my Dark States Favrneel deck. So version 2, everything through the additional special set, so through a fraction of the booster set 11. And this deck has received a pretty nice upgrade that has made it a lot easier for the deck to get the 13 grades into your soul that are necessary to use Favrneel's skill. And it is also now possible to persona ride in a way with this deck, not the traditional way of, just riding another copy. But through other card effects, we can persona ride now. So, pretty nice upgrade for the deck overall. So, as always, we'll be going through the deck, and then we'll show it off in one card fight for you to see it in action. So, starting first with the ride deck, we have our grade 0 starter, which is Uncanny Burning. So, when it's rolled upon, if you win second, draw a card. Same old starter skill. And yes, I am still using a scrapped together ride line as opposed to the generic ride line that was introduced in the stand-up deck set, just because I prefer to go this route. So anyway, next for the grade 1, we have Flaming Pony. So he has his activate ability when he's in your soul that says that you can bind this card and soul charge 2. So he'll always be in your soul, obviously, since you're going to be riding him. So later in the game, you can just bind him out to soul charge 2. So it replaces a grade 1 card in your soul with 2 random cards. So as long as you get anything other than 2 grade 0s or a grade 0 and a grade 1, then you should be gaining in your grade counts in your soul from this skill, which we are running quite a bit of grade 3s in this deck. So you have pretty good odds of increasing your grade count off of this skill. Otherwise, it is just a free +1 to your soul, so you get a resource out of it, if nothing else, which you can potentially use for some of your other costs, even if you do end up like soul charging 2 triggers or something. So a very simple ability, but overall just a helpful one in helping build up those cards in your soul. So then next for the grade 2, we actually have a new grade 2 in the ride deck, which is Squalid Freaks. So he has a continuous ability when he's in your soul that says if you did not ride this turn, this card gets grade +2. So that means from every turn from turn 4 onward, this card will become a grade 4 in your soul, which again, you're guaranteed to have at least 1 copy of it in your soul since we'll be riding into it. So we are running some extra copies of this card in the main deck as well, so you can potentially stack some more in there with your other card skills. So for every copy of this card in your soul, that will be 4 grades towards the 13 that you need. So it can help make that a lot easier to get that necessary grade count later in the game. It can also potentially free up some of the other cards in your soul to be soul blasted out and still not, have you drop below the 13. So very, very helpful in both those regards. And then he also has an auto ability that's also active when he's in your soul that says when your grade 3 or greater Vanguard attacks, if you did not ride this turn, you can bind this card and all of your front row units get power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So this is another option you can do with this card if you're well past the 13 grades that you need in your soul. You can just bind him out of your soul in order to power up your entire front row. So again, you will be losing out on up to 4 grades by removing this card from your soul. So again, be careful to not drop that grade count too low. But if you have a big soul built up by that point and you have the excess grades to spare, then turning this card into some extra power gain for that front row can be very nice in helping boost your offense. So overall, just a very nice card for this deck. So then lastly for the grade 3, we have Purgatory Dragon Deity Favrneel. So he has this continuous ability that says you may only have up to 1 Purgatory Dragon Deity Favrneel in your deck. So this is the only copy of this card we're allowed to run, so you cannot do a normal Persona Ride with this, despite him having the Persona Ride icon. But like I said, we do have some new ways to be able to still pull that off. But then he has his first auto ability that says at the beginning of your main phase, your opponent chooses one of their rear guards and retires it. And if you did not ride this turn, this unit gets power plus 10,000 critical plus 1. So this is just a free -1 to your opponent at the beginning of your main phase. It lets you take out one of their rear guards, which your opponent does get to choose which one is retired, so they do have a little bit of control over that. But no matter what, it is a -1 to them if they have anything else on their board. And also, again, from turn 4 onward, since you won't be riding, this will also give your Vanguard that extra 10k and a crit, which, thanks to his last auto ability, Favrneel can restand himself. So getting that extra crit pressure on both those attacks and the extra power, of course, is very, very nice. And this ability can also help trigger his second auto ability. That says when your opponent's rear guard is retired during your turn, you can put a card from hand into soul and draw a card. So this is just a hand filter, but again, it does get you another card into your soul. So that does help build up the grade count in there to help you get you to 13 as fast as possible. And it can also help, filter out some unneeded cards in your hand to maybe draw into something better. So pretty nice ability. Again, it will be triggered once by his first auto ability, and then we have several other effects in this deck that can help you retire as well to potentially trigger this even more. So very helpful skill. And then lastly, he has his main ability, which is yet another auto ability. That says once per turn, at the end of the battle this unit attacked, if the sum of the grades of Dark States cards in your soul is 13 or more, you can counterblast 2 to stand this unit, and this unit gets drive -1 until end of turn. So this is the main ability. If you can fill up your soul with the 13 grades, then he will be able to restand himself and lose 1 drive. So you'll get the extra Vanguard attack out of it. You'll get 3 drive checks in total. And this is a counterblast 2 cost, but there is no discarding or anything, so that is a +1 overall as well, since you get that extra trigger check. So a counterblast 2 for an extra attack and a +1 isn't too bad, and we do have actually a better way to countercharge in this deck than we did before. So overall, a pretty strong ability, giving you 4 attacks per turn and 3 trigger chances. So giving you a pretty nice level of offense all around. So that is the ride deck. Moving on to the main deck. First off, for the grade 3s, obviously we can't have any more copies of Favrneel thanks to his continuous ability, but we do have 4 copies of Demonic Swordsman of Riving, Elgato. So he has his auto ability that says when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you have a Vanguard with Favrneel in its card name, you can put 1 other rear guard into your soul, to choose one of your opponent's rear guards, retire it, and if the sum of the grades of Dark States cards in your soul is 13 or greater, you countercharge 1. So this is the new countercharge engine for the deck, replacing Selfish Engraver, and this one definitely works better than her, since you don't have to have, 10 cards in your soul in order to get the countercharging effect. So this ability is a -1 to you overall, since you're sucking in one of your other rear guards into the soul, but it's a -1 to your opponent as well, since you get to retire one of their cards. Plus you get the counter charge out of it, plus that gets more grades into your soul, plus it can also trigger Favrneel's ability again to let you put a card from hand into soul and draw as well. So an excellent way to build up the grade count in your soul while also helping further pick apart your opponent's board. So yes, it does hurt you in terms of card advantage, but it makes up for it with all these bonuses. So just a very, very helpful card overall. So next up, we got 3 copies of Purgatory Baron Hrodis. So he has 2 auto abilities. First one says at the end of the battle, this unit attacked a Vanguard. If you have a Vanguard with Favrneel in its card name, you can put this unit into your soul, to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So once again, a -1 to you to -1 your opponent, and yet another retiring option. So it is a -1, but it's break even overall, since you're also hurting your opponent. And again, it's 3 more grades into your soul, since he shoves himself in there. And again, it also triggers Favrneel's on retire ability to let you hand filter and build up your soul even more. So it can be another very helpful option in increasing that grade count in your soul, while again picking apart your opponent's board, and also setting up for his second auto ability that is active when he's in your soul, that says at the beginning of your ride phase, if you have a Vanguard with Favrneel in its card name, you can bind this card and discard a card from hand to activate Persona Ride. And until end of turn, you cannot activate Persona Ride with other card effects, and you cannot ride. So this is one of two different ways now. We do have the ability to activate Persona Ride in this deck, despite not having any extra copies of Favrneel to actually ride into. Now you do have to discard for this cost, so the Persona Ride will still not be a +1, it'll be a ±0 like normal, since, you know, normally you would be minusing from the ride itself. So that pretty much is just standard, but you do have to bind this card out of your soul in order to use it, so that is losing 3 grades out of your soul, so again, be mindful of that grade counts in your soul. But having an option to activate Persona Ride is very, very nice in this deck, especially since a lot of times your rear guards aren't going to be hitting for super huge numbers. So being able to get that power gain to the front row is extremely helpful in letting your attacks hit some much better numbers. And of course, it will be powering up both of Favrneel's attacks as well. So definitely a vital card for this deck, and an excellent choice to actually put directly from your hand into soul off of Favrneel's skill, if you have him in your hand. So next up, we got 2 copies of Execution Dragon Vorpal Scythe Dragon. So he has his activate ability that says once per turn, you can Soul Blast 2 to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. So again, another retiring option to potentially trigger Favrneel's ability. Now this is a Soul Blast 2 cost, but if you end up, you know, building up some grade 0s in your soul through some of your other effects, those don't help in your soul anyway, since they don't contribute to your grade count. So you can safely Soul Blast those out to pick apart your opponent's board, and potentially get a higher grade unit from your hand in your soul with Favrneel's skill. So a very nice ability in letting you turn some of those useless soul cards into a more useful ability. And then he also has his auto skill that says when this unit's attack hits, you may soul charge 2. So a nice pressure ability as well. If he hits anything, a Vanguard or a rear guard, you can potentially soul charge 2 off of that. So it is a blind soul charge, so it might help your grade counts in your soul, depending on what you soul charge. But regardless, it gets you more resources, and of course it can potentially force your opponent to block his attack if they want to prevent you from getting that skill off. So still a helpful card overall. So then lastly for the grade 3s, we have 2 copies of Causality Dragon Crucial Dragon. So he has this continuous ability when he's on rear guard or guardian circle that says if your opponent's drive check or damage check reveals a trigger unit to this turn, this unit gets power plus 10,000, shield plus 10,000. So it can become a 10k shield in your hand or a 23k beater on your board if your opponent has checked a trigger that turn. So helping make up for that power gain that your opponent's got in either of those situations. And then he also has this auto ability that says once per turn, when this unit attacks a Vanguard while not boosted, you can put another rear guard in the same column as this unit into soul and perform all of the following. So you can choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it, and this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. And then you can also remove an over trigger from your drop, and your opponent cannot call grade 1 or greater cards from hand to guardian circle until end of that battle. So overall, this is an ability that just flows really nicely with this deck. If you have anything behind him, you can just attack with this card and then shove that card behind him into your soul. So again, that can possibly increase the grade counts in your soul. And then it lets you retire one of your opponent's cards. So again, yet another retiring option, which again will trigger Favrneel's ability, letting you possibly get even more grades into your soul. Plus you get the slight power gain on the Crucial Dragon with a 5k gain. And in the off chance that you have your over trigger in your drop zone, you can potentially remove it to give Crucial Dragon a pretty nice guard restrict as well, blocking them from calling any grade 1 or greater cards. So that will block your standard Sentinels, everything except Sanctitude, obviously. So all around, just a very versatile card for this deck. It can be a defensive option since, you know, we do have quite a high grade 3 counts in this deck. Having a grade 3 that can become a shield card is very useful. It can be a nice beat stick on your board, it can help build up your soul, it can pick apart your opponent's board, and it can trigger Favrneel's ability as well. So just a fantastic card in this deck. So then lastly for the grade 3s, we just have one copy of our normal order Regales piece, Gradius Greydall. So you can play this if you have a grade 3 Vanguard with Persona Ride and you did not ride this turn, and it just lets you activate Persona Ride. So this is the other option in order to get your Persona Ride active in this deck. So Favrneel does have the Persona Ride icon, despite not being able to run any extra copies of him. So this card still will work with this deck. So if you don't have Herodis in your soul, or you want to keep him in your soul to keep the grade counts up, you can potentially use this card as another option to still get that Persona Ride off, and get that very much needed power gain and the draw, of course, as well. So very helpful in having that alternate method to get that Persona Ride. So that is all the grade 3s. Moving on to the grade 2s. First off, we do have our 3 additional copies of Squalid Freaks. Again, this is a high priority target to get into your soul, especially from your hand. If you draw into this, you can just shove it into soul with Favrneel's skill to get that grade count up as high as possible. Next up, we got 2 copies of Amazement Magician. So she has her auto ability that says when this unit attacks, you may soul charge 1. So very basic skill, just letting you build up more and more soul, and hopefully, you soul charge something that's not a grade 0. So it is a blind soul charge, but gaining a resource can still be very helpful in this deck. So then lastly for the grade 2s, we just have 2 copies of Steam Mage Ashur Da. So he has a continuous ability when he's on Guardian Circle. That says if your soul has 7 or more cards, this unit gets shield plus 5,000. So potentially a 10k shield if you build up enough soul. And then he also has his auto ability that says when this unit is retired from Guardian Circle, you may put this card into your soul. So that will work regardless of if you get the extra shield gain or not. So whenever you guard with him, he will just go right into your soul. So again, that's just a free extra 2 grades into your soul for your grade count. So just a nice defensive option for this deck that can also help towards your primary plays as well. So that is all the grade 2s. Moving on to the grade 1s. First off, we have 4 copies of Brainwash Swirler. So he has 2 auto abilities. First one says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you soul charge 1. And then his second auto ability says when your card is put into your soul by soul charge, if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gets power plus 5,000 until end of turn. So again, another soul building option and a very nice power gaining ability as well, giving him 5k for each time that you soul charge that turn. So the turn you call him, his first ability will obviously trigger that once, putting him to at least 13k. And of course you have seen we have quite a few other soul charging abilities in this deck. So it does have to be an ability that actually says soul charge, not just, putting a card into your soul, like for Eligosa's cost or whatever. But if you do activate any of those other soul charging abilities, then that power gain will stack for each one. So you can potentially get him up to some very nice numbers. So he can be a good booster or potentially an attacker if you really need him to be. So a nice offensive card and a nice soul building card as well. So next we got 3 copies of Steam Battler Gungram. So its auto ability says when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, you soul charge 1. So again, another soul charging ability will trigger Brainwash Swirler, will get that soul count up. And then he also has his activate ability that says once per turn, you can Soul Blast 3 and draw a card. So this is also a nice draw engine for this deck. If you build up some low grade cards in your soul, grade 0s or potentially grade 1s that you can spare, then you can turn those into some extra card advantage by just soul blasting them out and drawing. So a very nice ability in this deck, especially since it doesn't plus a ton outside of, the extra drive check you're getting from Favrneel. So with all the soul you'll be building up with this deck, you should be able to get this skill off at least once or twice. So very, very nice card. So the only other grade ones we have are Sentinels. So first off, we have 3 copies of Repelled Malice Dragon, just your standard Perfect Guard, as well as 1 copy of the Blitz Order Elementaria Sanctitude, which you can play without paying the cost if your opponent's Vanguard has triple drive. So that's all the grade 1s. Moving on to the grade 0s, we just have our trigger lineup, which is 7 crits, 4 front, 4 heal, and 1 over. So starting first with the crit triggers, we have 4 copies of Diabolos Girls My My, so just your vanilla crit. Additionally, we have 3 copies of Stem Deviate Dragon. So crit with a skill at the end of the battle at boosted, you can put in your soul to choose one of your units, and it gets power plus 2,000 until end of turn. So I don't really use this skill ever in this deck. It gets a grade 0 into your soul, which doesn't really help you much other than to potentially soul blast it back out. So yeah, if you'd rather run another vanilla crit, you can. So next for the fronts, we have 4 copies of Diabolos Girls Natalia. So front with a skill, if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, get shield plus 5,000. So your 20k shield front trigger. And then for the heals, we have 4 copies of Diabolos Girls Ariana. So just a vanilla heal. Of course, as always, if you want to run any effect heals, you can. And then lastly, for the over trigger, we have our 1 copy of Hades Dragon Deity of Resentment, Galmage Held. So his additional effect says you get, during your turn, all of your Vanguards get power plus 10,000, critical plus 1 until end of this fight. So giving a skill to the player, granting a permanent crit trigger to your Vanguard. So that will stack with the extra crits and power gain he gets from his own skill. And of course your Vanguard will be attacking twice each turn. So can definitely put a lot of pressure on your opponents, especially if you check this early. So that is the deck. So we will go ahead and have our 1 fight with it. And I think we'll fight Rossin this time. And we'll be going second.
Stand up, Vanguard.
Alright, so we'll discard. And we'll drop Amazement Magician to ride. And use our starter skill to drop. And then I'm going to just go ahead and attack.
Vanguard attack. Drive check.
And he gets a crit trigger that is wasted. So now he'll get to retire his 1 plant token and call 2 new ones. And then he'll call 2 more with Prod Pollen skill. So I filled up his whole board of plant tokens. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this one through. And we get a crit trigger. So now he's gonna need a trigger to even hit us again. So I will take the chance and let that one through. And he did not get one. Alright, so we'll discard one of these Brainwash Swirlers to ride Squalid Freaks. And once again, I'm going to just go ahead and attack.
Vanguard attack. Drive check. Front trigger.
And we get a front trigger that is wasted, unfortunately.
僕のターンドロー。ここで勝負を決めます。ヴァンガードにアタック。
And I'll let that one through.
ノーガードダメージチェック
ヴァンガードにアタック。
And we'll guard that one with that front.
ガー
ドライブチェック。ドライブチェック。 ヴァンガードにアタック。
And I think I'll go ahead and let that one through.
ノーガードダメージチェッククリティカルトリガー
And we get a crit trigger that is also wasted.
パワープラス
ターンエンド。
僕のターンドロー
Alright, so we'll discard the heal, I guess,
僕の力とくと見よライト
to ride Favrneel. And then we can use his ability at the beginning of the main phase
スキル発動
to retire one of his rear guards, which he just takes out a plant token. But that will trigger Favrneel's other ability to let us put a card from hand into soul, so we'll shove Squalid Freaks in there
スキル発動
and draw. So then I'm going to go ahead and call Brainwash Swirler,
コールスキル
and I'll use his ability to soul charge one. And we soul charged a grade 3 there, nice.
スキル発動
So that will also power up Swirler by 5k. So then we'll also go ahead and call Gungram over here,
スキル発動
and his ability will let us soul charge again. And we got a grade 0 that time,
パワープラス
but it still gives Swirler another 5k. So then from our soul, we'll use Flaming Pony's ability
スキル発動
and bind him and soul charge 2. And we got a 3 and a 1 that time,
発動パワープラス
and that gives Swirler another 10k.
スキル発動パワープラス
So let's see, we got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 grades in our soul, so we need 2 more. So we'll go ahead and call Amazement Magician, and we'll put her over here. And then we'll call Eligos over here. And I think that's all we can do for now, so we'll go ahead and attack. And I'm going to attack with Amazement Magician first, boosted by Brainwash
ヴァンガー
Swirler.
ドにアタックだ
And Magician skill will let us soul charge once again. And we soul charge to grade 3, nice.
スキル発動
So that will power up Swirler by another 5k,
ノーガード
and give us the 13 grades in our soul that we needed.
ダメージチェック。
So now we can attack with Favrneel,
ヴァンガードにアタックだ
スキル発動。
and he uses Roroa's ability to retire his plant tokens and power up his Vanguard. So by retiring all of his rear guards, he actually triggered Favrneel's ability 3 times. So we could cycle the cards out of our hand and draw, but they're all low grades anyway, so I'm actually not going to use that ability
ノ
any.
ーガード。
ドライブチェックドライブチェック
But now we can use Favrneel's skill to counterblast 2.
スキル発動この場は僕が制圧した
and restand. So now we can attack once again with only 1 drive this
ヴァ
time.
ンガードにアタックだ
ノーガード。
ドライブチェックフロントトリガ
And we get a front trigger.
君のヴァンガードは僕が支配した
もうダメダメージチェック
So now we'll attack with Elgato, boosted by Gangnam.
ヴァンガードにアタックだ
And we'll go ahead and use Elgato's ability as well. So we'll shove Amazement Magician into the soul
スキル発動
and retire his last rear guard. And then we can also countercharge. And that retire once again triggered Favrneel's ability, which, you know what, I think I will go ahead and use this time. So we'll shove this Elgato into the soul
スキル発動
and draw.
ノーガードダメージチェック
ターンイン
So we got him to 5 already.
ペルソナライド
But he did get his Persona right.
スキル発動スペリオルコールコールです
And he did get Ready Lena as well, which he will use to call out Momoke,
スキル発動
which he will use to eat his plant tokens and power it.
コールスキル発動
And then he'll power it up even more.
コールですスキル発動
And even more. Wow.
パワープラス
He's got Momoke to 40k. And then he uses Spiritual Body Condensation
スペリオル
to revive Prod Pollen
スキル発動
and uses her skill to replenish his plant tokens.
ヴァンガードにアタックです
So we wound up building a pretty good board there. So we'll guard that one with this front.
ガード
ヴァンガードにアタック
And let's see. We'll guard with that front and Asher Da. And that'll be 2 to pass.
ガード
ドライブチェックドライブチェックゲットヒールトリガー
And he gets a heal trigger, which he does
パワー
get.
プラス
Powers up Momoke even further. But now Asher Da will put himself into our soul.
ヴァンガードにアタック
And that is a whopping 50,000, so I'm going to let that one through.
ノーガードダメージチェック
ヴァンガードにアタックスキル発動
And then Ready Lena will let him Soul Blast and gain Momoke's power, so that puts her to 70,000. So it's just one crit, so I'm going to let that one through too, actually.
ノーガードダメージチェック
ターンエンド
僕のターンドロー
Alright, so since we did Soul Charge Herodis last turn, we can go ahead and use his ability to bind him out of the soul and discard 1. So we'll drop that heal, I guess.
スキル発動バインペルソナライ
To activate Persona Ride. Now he drew another heal. So then Favrneel's
ド
ability
スキル発動この場は僕が制圧した
will once again let us retire one of his rear guards. And he just takes out a plant token.
クリティカルプラス
But we gain 10k and a crit. So then we could cycle one out of our hand, but the only high grade I have is Crucial Dragon, and I kind of want to keep him in my hand. So I'm actually not going to use that ability. Which, let's check the soul count real fast. We have 2 Squalid Freaks that are both grade 4s now, so that's 8 plus 9, 17... plus 4, 21, 22. So we have 22 grades in our soul now. So I think that's plenty. So I'm going to go ahead and use Gungram's ability to Soul Blast 3. So we'll get rid of these grade 0s and a grade 1. And draw. So then we'll call Crucial Dragon. And I think we are good to go. So we will go ahead and attack with Favrneel first. And we will go ahead and activate the effects of one of these Squalid Freaks. So we'll bind him from these ult. And give our front row an extra 5k. And I'm not going to use the other one. And he guards and double intercepts. So now once again we can use Favrneel's ability to counterblast 2. To restand, and we can attack once again with 1 drive this time. And I'm not going to use Squalid Freaks this time either. And he guards with his over trigger. So now we're going to attack with Crucial Dragon. And I'm actually not going to boost with Brain or Swirler. And instead we're going to use his ability to shove Swirler into the soul. And then we can retire 1, so we'll take out his Momoke. Which gives him another 5k. And triggers Favrneel's ability, which I actually will use this time. So we'll shove that other Squalid Freaks into the soul. And draw. And he let that one through. So now we'll attack with Elgato, boosted by Gungram for 36,000. And we'll use Elgato's ability and we'll shove Crucial Dragon into the soul as well. To retire his last rear guard and countercharge. And once again, we'll use Favrneel's ability and we'll shove Herodis into the soul. And draw. Oh, but he's got to let it through. And that draw does not save him, so we got him with that one. So there you go, that was version 2 of my Favrneel deck. Very nice upgrade for this deck, like I said, being able to get that Persona ride now, and also just build up your soul a lot better, is very nice in helping with this deck's offense. So anyway, I will be back soon with what is actually going to be my final full deck profile for Dear Days 1. Like I said, I'm almost done, people. So I will be doing version 2 of my Graham Grace deck next. And then after that I have one more final Dear Days 1 video where I'm just going to be doing like a compilation video of all the minor upgrades that some of my other decks got. So that'll be my last 2 Dear Days videos that'll be going up. So until then, I guess that's all for this video. So lots of luck to you and yours.